From the very beginning of the Transformers franchise, there was a Decepticon who emerged faster than any other as one of the most popular of all time. And you all really want to hear about him. By popular demand, let's dig into the basics on Soundwave. The original Soundwave toy began life as Cassette Man, a figure from the Japanese Microchange toy line. The toy transformed into a microcassette player and was designed to interact with the Microchange cassette robo-figures released alongside it. Small robots that could transform into cassettes that fit inside the larger toy's chest drawer. The whole assortment was imported by Hasbro in 1984 to become part of the first year of the Transformers toy line, with Soundwave himself coming packaged with Buzzsaw. The toy's head was even used as the basis of the Decepticon insignia. Marvel writer Bob Budiansky named Soundwave, assigning him the function of Decepticon Communications Officer, whose mastery of radio and electronic transmissions was so great that he could even read minds. As characterized by Budiansky, Soundwave was a smooth-talking, backstabbing opportunist who used his abilities to gather blackmail material on his fellow Decepticons, ensuring himself a high position among their ranks. And if you're thinking, that doesn't sound like the Soundwave I know, you're not exactly wrong. Very little of this personality translated to the animated series, in which Soundwave was one of the main Decepticon characters for the first 2 seasons, and one of Megatron's most loyal followers. The cartoon used Soundwave's talent for intel gathering to recast him in the role of the Decepticons' espionage specialist. He often used his shrunken cassette player form to covertly gain access to targets, and the show played up his partnership with the cassettes, who resided in his chest and served as his spies and enforcers. Standing out thanks to his electronically modulated voice performed by Frank Welker, which became not just a defining trait of the character, but one of the single most well-remembered aspects of the entire cartoon. Soundwave quickly emerged as one of the most popular characters on the show.
Rumble, activate pile drivers, Operation Tidal Wave.
This led to his toy still being sold in 1986, at a point in time in which almost every other figure from 1984 had been discontinued, which in turn meant he was allowed to survive the events of the Transformers the movie and continue to appear in the 3rd season of the cartoon. Hasbro even began producing original cassette toys of their own, both for Soundwave and for his Autobot counterpart Blaster, who some of Soundwave's most notable adventures in the cartoon had him facing off against. In sharp contrast, Soundwave was a far less significant player in the Marvel comic. Even the cassettes regularly appeared without him. Pretty much the only notable thing about Marvel Soundwave was that he was purple, apparently the colorist's loose interpretation of an early, very pale, bluey, lavendery color scheme seen in one of the first Transformers commercials. And he was sometimes drawn with a mouth. Ugh. But perhaps because he was so underserved in the American comic, the UK comic was able to do a lot more with the character, and actually bring to life Budiansky's vision for him. The UK Soundwave, in addition to remaining blue, was not afraid to subversively pit competing Decepticon leaders against one another and manipulate those around him. He even served as leader himself several times, smoothly sliding into the role when it was vacated. And he hosted the comics letters page for a year. But that was just the UK. There's no question that in the big picture, it was the cartoon's loyal, sound-manipulating spy master that permanently defined Soundwave in Transformers lore. And his popularity wasn't limited to Hasbro markets either. In Japan, Takara proved so reluctant to let the character go that immediately after his toy was finally discontinued in 1987, they re-released it in a new black color scheme, with a retooled chest that could hold 2 cassettes instead of 1, as an upgraded version of Soundwave named Sound Blaster. The story of this upgrade was told in the Japanese-exclusive cartoon sequel, The Headmasters, in which Soundwave was destroyed in a final battle with Blaster, only for his loyal cassettes to recover his remains and see to it that he was returned to life through the super science of the planet Master. For the final year of the Generation 1 toy line, multiple popular characters were brought back to toy store shelves as new Action Master figures, and of course, Soundwave was one of them. But as tended to be the case with even the best-loved bots, Soundwave faded into the background as Transformers moved into the 1990s. After some barely recognisable appearances in the Generation 2 and Machine Wars toy lines, his name was used again in the Beast Wars line. But like virtually all Beast Wars characters who used existing names, Beast Wars Soundwave had nothing to do with the original. He was part of the Mutants range of figures who didn't have robot modes and transformed from alligator to bat. When the nostalgia boom of the early 2000s saw many of the classic Transformers characters revived, the dated nature of Soundwave's alternate mode necessitated that he and his once and former cassettes get a bit more of a makeover for the kid audience of the 21st century, with his most prolific partner from the original cartoon, Laserbeak, coming to replace Buzzsaw as his standard pack-in accessory. Thus, 2005's Transformers Cybertron introduced the first brand new incarnation of the classic Soundwave character, now with a stealth bomber alternate mode and a Laserbeak who became a bomb for it. This Soundwave hailed from the destroyed world known as Planet X, a master of distraction and disorientation who played the Autobots and Decepticons off against one another in his quest for revenge for the death of his home. Cybertron Soundwave's personality and powers played up his connection to sound and music. He spoke like a DJ and could make his voice sound like anyone. Transformers Animated took that concept even further with its incarnation of Soundwave, introduced in 2008, who began life as a music-playing toy robot created by Megatron. Sari Sumdak was tricked into using her Allspark-powered key to evolve Soundwave into a true Decepticon, a robotic revolutionary determined to subjugate mankind in the name of his fellow machines. This Soundwave used his own sonic powers to take control of other machines, including the Autobots themselves, amplified by his partners Laserbeak and Ratbat, who turned into a pair of guitars. There were plans to include Soundwave and his feline partner Ravage in the first live-action movie, but as the ideas were developed, they wound up inspiring the characters of Blackout, Scorponok, Barricade, and Frenzy instead. So Soundwave had to wait for 2009's Revenge of the Fallen to make his film debut. Frank Welker returned to reprise the role for the film, in which Soundwave orbited Earth in his satellite mode, monitoring transmissions, acquiring intel, and deploying Ravage. 2011's Dark of the Moon revealed Soundwave to be the mastermind behind a decades-long conspiracy to have humans conceal the presence of an Autobot spacecraft on the moon. With his new Mercedes disguise, he menaced Sam Witwicky and his girlfriend Carly, which wound up earning him a swift death at the hands of Sam's guardian Bumblebee. Soundwave was joined on screen by Laserbeak, and tie-in comic books equipped him with more new versions of classic cassettes while exploring the depths of the conspiracy he'd weaved. While he'd been little more than a guest star in Cybertron and Animated, prominence in the movies ensured Soundwave a major role in the next animated series, Transformers Prime, which reimagined him with a slender robot form and a stealth drone alternate mode, armed with the tentacles of his movie incarnation and with Laserbeak at his side. A fearsome fighter who never wasted a movement, Prime Soundwave defended Megatron against threats from within the Decepticon ranks. He could even open his own space bridge portals, a trick that backfired when the Autobots exiled him through one to the dimension known as the Shadow Zone. Soundwave escaped years later in the 2015 sequel series Robots in Disguise, and acquired a new form that combined his Prime look with his more classically inspired design from the War for Cybertron video game. But his attempts to re-establish contact with Megatron were foiled by Bumblebee's Autobots. Soundwave was initially mute, explained by ancillary media to be a vow of silence he'd taken to prove that action spoke louder than words. But when the time came for him to break that silence, Frank Welker was behind the mic once again. In addition to the various air and ground vehicle forms he's taken in these cartoons and films, as one of the brand's major legacy characters, Soundwave has a regular presence in the various Transformers toy lines, which often reinvent his original alternate mode, or try to recapture its theme for the modern day by giving him forms like a working MP3 player or a tablet computer. But when it comes to reinventing the character in media, it's IDW Publishing's comic books that have presented one of the most fleshed-out takes on Soundwave yet. In his youth, IDW's Soundwave was almost driven to insanity by his inability to control his mind-reading power, until he met Ravage, Laserbeak, and Buzzsaw, who taught him focus. Soundwave was convinced to join the Decepticons by Megatron's belief that all Cybertronians deserved to be treated equally. He adopted his classic cassette player form while visiting Earth on a spy mission in the 1980s, but wound up stranded on the planet for decades. He was recovered and rejoined Megatron's forces in the present day, but was hit hard when his old and weary leader abandoned Decepticonism. Though hurt, Soundwave concluded that even without Megatron, the Decepticon cause of equality was still worth fighting for, and following a disastrous alliance with Galvatron, he's resolved to do so peacefully. Today, Soundwave is the patriarch of Sanctuary Station, a peaceful Decepticon commune orbiting Jupiter, and works with Optimus Prime and humanity to ensure a better future for Cybertron. Wherever his story will take him next, and whatever form he may take in the future, there's no question Soundwave will be a part of Transformers for a long, long time. He's just one of the all-time greats. Or, as he'd say,
Soundwave superior.
And those are the basics on Soundwave, my Christmas gift to all of you who requested him. Tell me about your favourite version of him in the comments, and I'll see you next time for more. Happy holidays!